Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AQA English Language Paper 1. This is the tutorial for the AQA paper. The title of this paper is Explorations in Creative Reading and Writing. Basically, that means that the paper focuses on fiction, and you will only have one text, probably a piece from either the 20th or the 21st century. There's 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete the paper, and it's in 2 sections, as you'll remember. Section A covers your reading comprehension and has questions 1 to 4. And the second part of the paper, the writing section, is section B, just 1 question to answer there. Each paper is worth 50% of the GCSE. So paper 1 is worth 50%. So we're going to concentrate on question 1 in this tutorial. It's really essential that you familiarise yourself with the structure of each paper and the exam as a whole for 2 reasons. 1, to alleviate anxiety. If you're one of my students, you'll already know I say this in every single lesson that we do when we're revising for our paper. The only thing that you should feel anxious about on exam day is the fact that you will be faced with reading a text that you haven't seen before, an unseen piece of fiction. There is nothing else that you should be worried about. Number 2 is that you are secure and you know what each question will ask you to do and how much time you can spend on each question so that you leave enough time to complete and check the whole paper at the end. Okay, so let's move on. So let's have a look at our assessment objectives. It's really important that you learn and you know what the assessment objectives are. So for question 1, these are set by the exam board. They're all different. So each exam board sets their own assessment objectives of what they would like the students to be able to do, the skills that you need to demonstrate to get good marks, basically. AO1 is essentially part of question 1, not always in question 1, because question 4 also has AO1 skills. But we're looking at AO1 today for question 1, and you're asked to identify and interpret pieces of explicit and implicit information and ideas. And secondly, to be able to select and synthesize evidence from different texts. So we've got some key terms to learn here. The first one, identify. That means to pick out information from the text. Interpret, show understanding of information by backing up your thoughts with evidence. So make sure that you learn those. You could put them on cards, couldn't you, to learn? The next one is explicit. So explicit information is factual information. It's facts. It's information that is true and can be proved because it's written on the page. Then we have implicit, what the information in the text might mean or suggest. So you have to be a bit of a detective to work that one out. And the last thing is select, obviously, you know, synthesize. If you are synthesizing evidence, you are able to draw together information from more than one text. So this is not in, so the second one there, select and synthesize evidence from different texts, is not tested in question 1, but comes into part of your question 4 response. So we are going to be looking at the first of our AO1 to be able to identify and interpret a piece of explicit and implicit information and ideas from question 1. Okay, so if we move on, let's have a look at what the question looks like. Okay, so it'll never change. It will give you, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. It will say, read again the first part of the source from, let's say, lines 1 to 7. It might be lines 1 to 12 or 1 to 5. In our case, it's lines 1 to 7. Okay, and that is where you must look. The facts that you find must only come from these lines and not anywhere else. And then it will give you another directive, and it will tell you list 4 things because you're looking for 4 facts, that you learn about the boy in the extract. Highlight the focus of the question with your highlighter pen, because that might change depending on the extract. So in our case, it's about the boy, but it could be about the weather. It could be about a setting, sort of like the house or the building, or anything else, or it could be about a character. So you won't know until the exam, but you are always finding just 4 things. Make sure you highlight the focus of the question. It is likely that in your lines you will have other information about other things. So we must be absolutely certain that we know what we're looking for to get the marks. Okay, moving on, let's have a look at our top tips. Now, if you are one of my students, you should be able to look back in your yellow books and you should have written down all these instructions. If you don't, or you're not one of my students, then please write these down. You can't spend any more than 5 minutes on this question because we need to get through the whole of the paper. Number 1, use a highlighter to box off the lines you are instructed to look at to answer the question. Oh, and if you can spot the mistake on my presentation there, it says box of. That should be 2 F's, box off. I'll fix that later. Number 2, use your highlighter to highlight the focus of the question. Then you're going to read your section. You're ready to read your section. So you're going to read from full stop to full stop. It's very important that you get used to doing that, because sometimes if you don't read to the full stop, then the meaning is not fully understood of what the sentence is trying to say. A sentence contains one complete idea, you'll remember. So we need to actually read past the commas, past the semicolons, all the way to the full stop to make sure we really understand what's going on. With your highlighter, highlight each fact that you find in the text. So at this point, you haven't written anything down. You are just highlighting the facts that you can see in the text. When you're actually ready to write your answers, you are only going to write 1 fact per line. If you put 2 facts in, you're only going to score 1 mark. And then it might be that you run out of facts and you don't get to the 4th line, and therefore you miss out the opportunity of scoring full marks. Start each fact or each of your sentences with the subject. And by that, I mean he or the boy. If it was the weather, it would be the weather or it is. But make sure you start with the subject. It helps you to write a clear, complete, short sentence. And use only information which is stated explicitly in the section. Now, there might be some implicit information that you want to work out. However, it's not a difficult question. It's not supposed to be a difficult question, but it's testing your ability that you've looked at the focus of the question and that you can actually pick out some information. So don't make it harder than it is. You can either quote directly from the text or you can use your own words. Just make sure you're very clear. So those are the tips. So now let's have a look at the text that we're going to use today. And I've chosen just a short beginning piece from William Golding's The Lord of the Flies. So I'm going to read it to you. Please follow through with me. The boy with fair hair lowered himself down the last few feet of rock and began to pick his way towards the lagoon. Though he had taken off his school sweater and trailed it now from one hand, his grey shirt stuck to him and his hair was plastered to his forehead. All round him, the long scar smashed into the jungle was a bath of heat. He was clambering heavily among the creepers and broken trunks when a bird, a vision of red and yellow, flashed upward with a witch-like cry, and this cry was echoed by another. Okay, you might want to pause the video at this stage and give yourself 5 minutes to actually find your information and write your answers down in a list, 1 to 4. Okay, so if you've restarted the video, let's have a look at what your text might have looked like if you had been using your highlighter pen correctly. So here we have, as you can see, I have put a yellow highlighter pen boxed off the section to make sure that I'm not going to look at information outside of where I've been instructed to look. And I've used a highlighter pen to highlight anything that gives me information about the boy, about the way he looks or what he's wearing or what he's actually doing. So you might just want to have a look and compare that with your response. So let's have a look then. I think we're going to have a look at a response from student A. So we've got 2 student responses. So student A has written, number 1, fair hair. Number 2, he had a long scar. Number 3, there is a red and yellow bird crying. Number 4, the boy is wearing a grey shirt and his hair is plastered to his forehead. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is how many answers are correct. So you're the examiner, you have 4 marks to award. Which ones are correct? Can you spot what the student has done wrong then to only be given a score of 1 point? So again, you might just want to briefly pause the video, pause me, have a little think about that. And then as we go on to the next slide, we'll talk about what the student did wrong. Okay, so let's have a little check together. So number 1, fair hair. Bit ambiguous. I might have awarded a mark for this. However, I'm going to say no. We are missing the subject. So it should be the boy has or had fair hair, or he has fair hair. Number 2, the text was misunderstood. He had a long scar. That is incorrect. If we just pop back up to the text, it says, all around him, the long scar smashed into the jungle was a bath of heat. So it's describing that there's a sort of scar-like indentation in the jungle. It's got nothing to do with what the boy looks like or what he's doing. So we have misread or misunderstood the text there. The boy does not have a scar. There is a red and yellow bird crying. So this student has not read the focus of the question. So we've misread the focus of the question, and this is nothing to do with the boy and therefore is incorrect. The boy is wearing a grey shirt and his hair is plastered to his forehead. Lovely. We've got 2 correct pieces of information about the boy. However, they are listed in 1 line, and so therefore only 1 point will be awarded. So I hope that you managed to pick out all of those mistakes, and they're not mistakes that you made. So let's have a look at what student B has responded with. So here's our response from student B. The boy has fair hair. He had taken off his sweater. The boy's hair was plastered to his forehead, and he is wearing a grey shirt. So can you identify what the student has done correctly to get 4 full marks? I think if we look together, number 1, a nice clear sentence. We have the subject, the boy does have fair hair. Notice we haven't got the boy in number 2, but we have he. So that is also the subject. So it makes the sentence really clear that we know that it is the boy that has taken off his sweater. The boy's hair, again, we've got the boy as the subject, was plastered to his forehead. These things are taken directly from the text. That's absolutely fine. And he is wearing a grey shirt. Fabulous. 1 point per line. And that concludes question 1. So you can practice yourself either with this text that's here, or you can go to any piece of fiction, any chapter in a book, take the first 7 to 10 lines, box them off, ask somebody to say, tell me 4 things about the weather, or 4 things about the character, 4 things about the setting, and just see if you can find somebody mum, carer, friend, brother, sister to try and sort of do a bit of a quiz with you, and keep on practicing. You would be amazed how many people do not get 4 out of 4. So you need to learn the assessment objectives, what skills you need to be demonstrating, learn the top tips, and practice. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you to have a go at question 2. Thank you. Bye-bye.